Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Today, we're going to continue with the notes that we started yesterday on writing equations from 2 points. I'm going to first start by reviewing the point-slope form that we did, and then I'm going to show you an alternative method that some of you may find a little bit easier. So let's get started. Looking at number 1, before I can do anything with writing an equation in slope-intercept form, I first have to determine my slope. So remember, we need to look at the change in y every single time. So to get from -1 to 2, or 2 to 5, or 5 to 8, what do? Awesome. We're going to add 3. It may be easier to see it when you're looking at your positives, so it's a good idea to start there. And if we double check that, we are adding 3 every single time. Because remember, second point minus the first point is how we're getting that number. Now if we look at our x's, what are we doing? Following that same idea. We're going to do second point minus the first, and we find out that we are adding 1 every single time. Do you remember that framework that we discussed in our last lesson? Right. It's called point slope form, and we said y minus blank is equal to blank times x minus blank. Filling in kind of the missing pieces, we choose a point, our y value goes by y, our x value goes by x, and our m, our slope, always goes in the middle. Remember, monkey in the middle. So when we look at our points, we go ahead and we choose one that looks great. I always choose one that has a 0 or all positive numbers. Lucky us, this time we do have a point that has a 0 in it. So I'm going to go ahead and put those points where it needs to go. So looking at my slope for a second, my change in y was 3, my change in x was 1, so my slope is 3 over 1, or I could just say 3. So that slope goes in the middle, my 3. Looking at the point I chose, the x value of my point is a 0, so I'm going to put that by my x. The y value of my point is a 5, so I put that by my y. From here, I do 2 simple steps to simplify. The first thing you always do is distribute to eliminate parentheses. The second thing that you always do is you're going to add or subtract the number by y. So in this situation, when I distribute, I get my y minus 5 is equal to, what is 3 times x? Good, it's 3x. And what is 3 times 0? Awesome, it is 0. And I'm going to write that down just for fun for right now. Now, to get my y by itself, my second step is I'm going to add that 5 over. So I add 5 to both sides very carefully. So I get y is equal to my 3x, and then 0 plus 5 is just 5. And now I have written my equation in slope-intercept form. Let's go ahead and look at number 3. So looking at number 3, we're going to start the same way. So we're going to figure out our change in y and our change in x. So to get from 6 to 5, what am I doing? Correct, I'm minusing 1. From 5 to 4, I'm still, right, I'm minusing 1. And then 4 to 3, awesome again, we are minusing 1. Looking at the upper part of our table, notice that's where my x's are at. Look carefully at the labels. Remember, x always comes first. What am I doing every time here? I am adding 2. Every single time I'm adding 2. So the slope of this table, and I'm going to write that off to the side, is m is equal to -1 over 2. And again, we're going to choose a point that looks good. There's no zeros. So we're just going to choose any positive point we want. To make it easy, I'm sticking with this first point, 2, 6. So in that point, x is equal to 2 and y is equal to 6. So the big difference here, instead of using point slope form like we discussed yesterday, you can actually just use your slope intercept form instead. So remember that y is equal to mx plus b. Notice off to the side, I wrote down what my m is, my slope. I wrote down the x value of my point, and I wrote down the y value of my point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute those numbers into the equation where it fits. So for the y, which number is y? Awesome. That number is 6, is equal to. For my m, which number is the m? Right, it's -1/2. And finally, for my x value, which number is x? Awesome, that's a 2. So remember, mx is m times x, and I still have that plus b that I'm working to find. From here, in 2 quick and easy steps, we can figure out what our answer is. So I have 6 is equal to, what is negative 1/2 times 2? Good job. It's a negative 1, and I still have that plus b. Now, how do I get b by itself? Great. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So when I do that, I get 7 is equal to b. All right, so let's look at what I have here. I have a b, I have an m, and I have an x, and I have a y. But the whole goal here is to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So I can actually take the 2 main parts from all this work that I did and put it into an equation to get slope-intercept form. I need a slope, and I need a y-intercept. Notice I just circled those. So those are the 2 things that I'm going to use to substitute back in. So y is equal to my slope, negative 1/2 x, and then my b, which happens to be a positive 7. And now I have my equation written in slope-intercept form. Now I realize that's a little confusing, so let's try that again. Let's look at number 5. So I'm going to start by labeling my points, because this time I'm given 2 points, so I need to use that slope formula. Remember that this is x1, y1, x2, y2. And I like to always draw in my equation where I'm working with it. So my slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I also like to draw in that framework so I don't forget any negatives. So now all I need to do is put the numbers where they belong. So what number is in your y2 position? Good, it's a 5. What number is in your y1 position? Great job, a 2. Now going to the bottom, what number is in your x2 position? Good, 0. And what number is in your x1 position? Great, negative 4. So that's equal to, now I just do the math. What's 5 minus 2? Great. And then remember, when you have minus a negative on the bottom, that's really a positive. So 0 plus 4 gives me 4. So off to the side, I'm going to write this. I have a slope that is equal to 3. Oops, sorry, let me fix that so it's a little bit nicer looking. So I have a slope that is equal to 3 over 4. This is where you get to pick and choose your own adventure. Which point do you want to use? So when I look at this one, I see that the point 0, 5 has a 0 in it. So I'm going to use those 2 values to get my other numbers. So in that point, x is equal to 0, and I see that y is equal to 5. So now that I've defined everything I need to substitute back into my equation, I get y is equal to my m and my x, and I still have my plus b. Notice I color-coded it so you guys can see it a little bit more easily this time. So now my y is 5. That's equal to my m, which is 3 over 4, times my x, which is 0, and I still have my plus b. I really like the way this one turns out, because what is 3 over 4 times 0? Exactly, it's nothing, it's just 0. So I end up with 5 is equal to b. So when I put this number back in, I now have a slope and I have a y-intercept, so I can put it into my equation. Y is equal to my slope of 3 over 4x, and this is a positive 5. We are going to skip number 6, and we are going to move on to number 8. You know what? I lied. We're going to move on to number 9 instead. So let's look at number 9. I think. Yeah, let's do number 9. So looking at number 9, we're going to start the same way. We're given 2 points. So what do we need to find? Great. Yes, we need to find our slope. So we label x1, y1, x2, y2. And what's that formula again? By now you should have it memorized. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my framework in, and I'm going to figure out my slope. What number is in the y2 position? Good, it's a 2. What number in the y1 position? Great job, it's a 4. x2 is a, yep, that's a 4 also. And x1 is, awesome, a 3. So now I can go ahead and subtract. So what's 2 minus 4? Watch your negatives. Awesome, -2. And then 4 minus 3 is? Good, 1. And then -2 over 1 simplifies down to a -2. So just like I did in the previous problem, I'm going to write this down. M is equal to -2. Now I look at my points. Which point do I want to use? All right, so I think this time I'm going to use the first point, 3 over 4. So I'm going to write down my x is equal to, what is x equal to in that point? Right, 3. And now I'm going to write down my y. What is y equal to in that point? Good, 4. So what's that formula again? Y is equal to mx plus b. So y is equal to my m, and then my x, and then plus b. So now that I have it all color-coded, I can easily go back and substitute in my numbers. So I have 4 is equal to, what's my m? Good. -2. What's my x? Great, so we're timesing that 3. And I still have that plus b. So now from here, I just do the math. What is -2 times 3? Good job. I get 4 is equal to -2 times 3, which is a -6, plus b. Is b by itself yet? No, it is not. So now I'm going to go ahead and bring that -6 over by adding it. So I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So I get 10 is equal to b. So going back again, I have a y-intercept my b. I have a slope. So now I have all the missing pieces to write my equation in slope-intercept form. So y is equal to my slope -2x and a positive 10. The other thing we did not discuss is what happens if you have a negative b. So say for pretend, so we're going to pretend for a minute. Pretend that you have a slope of -1 over 2 and you have a b of -5. The way I would substitute that in the equation, if that was what I ended up with, is y is equal to that -1 over 2. But now, because it's a -5, we would say -5. Okay? I hope this lesson, you enjoyed this lesson today. If you have any questions, feel free to talk to your teacher. For your classwork today, you will be completing the rest of the notes. You may skip number 6 if you would like. However, if you have fractions that are your friends, number 6 is a great problem for you. If you have any questions, like I said, make sure you see your teacher. Thanks and have a good day. Bye.